So the final session in this sustainability block is from Amrit Chandan. Amrit is a keynote speaker, a coach, a CEO, and he's passionate advocate for integrating data-driven decision-making with philosophical inquiry, which he believes is the key to unlocking true potential and achieving success. Showcasing how we can bring sustainability to all aspects of our lives by understanding our inner purpose and taking action to save the world without losing ourselves in the process. Amrit, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session on harnessing the power of data and introspection to create impact. So I wanted to start by talking about the 29th of June 2023. This was a really important date to me. It was a day when my life changed again. So I was sat in the maternity ward with my wife, Simran. We were expecting the arrival of our second son. The whole time I was there, I was thinking, I was busy answering emails, taking calls with investors, and generally sort of working. And I realized that I was not present in that moment, and that was a really strange, surreal feeling to have. So first, let me sort of explain and introduce myself into this. So just going right back to the start, I started my career with a PhD in chemical engineering, and it was early days that we had a UN scientist come to our research group who told us that the world was beyond saving. He said, "Don't even try, just give up, live your best life." And this was super depressing to hear at the start of one's career. And so I decided, after internalizing what this meant, that I wanted to step into the tragic gap of the world as it is, and between the world as it is and the world as it could be, to help bridge that gap and try and make a positive impact. So I finished my PhD study and then started working in the low-carbon vehicle space, looking at electric vehicle deployments and fleet deployments. And spent and it was while I was there, I realized that there was an opportunity within the battery sector to look at making batteries more sustainable. So we started a company with a co-founder, Carlton. We started Acceleron and spent 7 years building that business. So raised capital, grew the team, built the partnerships, won the t-shirt and got the scars. And I realized sort of on that journey, I wanted to have impact and make a difference, because recognize this big problem with the world as it is, but felt this deep disconnect between the way I was doing it and the cost that it was causing. So it felt like I was helping to save the world and do my part, but I was losing myself in the process of making that change. As I come back to the maternity ward, sitting there with that feeling of deep disconnect, of working really hard at one of the moments where you generally think you will be the most present in your life, feeling like I had to be on all the time, feeling like I needed to be there, and otherwise sort of the change I was trying to make wouldn't happen in the world. And I realized in that moment that I needed to bring myself into balance in order to keep the change long lasting. And that's really important, because I have two children now, and every time I see them, one is 4 and now 1, I realize that they're going to face challenges in their life which I can only imagine, and I feel it's my duty to do everything I can to try and make that world a little bit better for them, and not just them, but also their generation as well, because we're in a period of great change. We've come a long way over the last couple of generations, and now it's our turn to step up and make that difference in the world. And so I had in my head all of these ideas of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, but they were just sort of, and that was coupled against this sort of inner voice that was always telling me whatever I was doing was not quite enough, and if I wasn't working, then change couldn't be happening. And so I realized that I was sort of burning my very own sort of essence, my life being, into this cause, into this change, and that wasn't necessarily the most healthy thing, because I also have a duty to my children and hopefully grandchildren one day, to be there for them as well. And so I decided to start writing things down, and this was the start of my own sort of journey of deep sort of conversation with myself to figure out what would be next. And so figuring out my way forward, I started out by started writing down exactly sort of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and I now call this the Ithaca framework. So this is based on a tale from Greek mythology, Homer's Odyssey. Odysseus, for those not familiar, spent 20 years traveling around. He was cursed by Poseidon to never reach home. And so he wanted to reach his home island of Ithaca, where his wife and his son were waiting for him. And he had to go on all sorts of challenges and adventures to make his way home. And in spite of massive odds against him, a god had cursed him to never reach there. So I think this is a great allegory for overcoming the challenges and hurdles, maintaining that sort of persistence as we're trying to reach our ultimate goal and purpose. But the first step of that is, trying to figure out, well, what is our Ithaca? So, first step of the journey is to decide where we're going, and then it's to figure out what does success look like on that journey. And this is one of those sort of concepts which does change over time. So it's a living thing. Our priorities in life change. Our sort of what we want to do and achieve will change, and so it's important to sort of recognize that this is not necessarily something that will be there forever in the same way. Then looking at that and where you are right now, what needs to change to get you there? We are always on a journey of learning, and we need to do that in order to achieve everything we want to achieve. And then having a regular practice of reflecting and introspecting. What I found really interesting is there are so many blockers that exist internally which can stop us from achieving what we need to achieve and want to achieve, which can be a huge challenge as we go forward. So understanding those patterns, understanding where we are and what's happening as we're going through and experiencing the world is really important. And finally, how does this fit into the overarching story that we have? So I used to think that I was either successful or I wasn't. It was a 0-1 type of relationship, and that wasn't necessarily. That's definitely not true, and wasn't healthy for me at the time. So thinking about sort of my life, my career in terms of an overarching story, and each part of it being a chapter of that story is super important, because we get to frame how we want things to go. So I wanted to share with you sort of my mission, and then also sort of what I'm looking to achieve in the context of my story. So sitting there sort of in the maternity ward, I thought long and hard about what was really important to me. And I came up with this sort of mission statement, which is I want to achieve a life full of love, safety, and belonging, changing the world for the better. So I want to have people around me. I want to really enjoy life and sort of spend that time with those around me and in that sort of place of love, safety, and belonging. But I want to also sort of make a positive contribution and impact on the world as well. And so my pyramid of success, and the way this works is that sort of loosely inspired by Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The lower down something is, the more essential it is, the more of a base need it is. The higher up it is, the more aspirational it is. So at the top of my pyramid, I want to be contributing to be part of projects that are worth more than $1 billion. I want to help positively impact more than 100 million people around the world. I want to help offset more than a gigaton of CO2. And then as I come down, there are sort of more, there are other desires that I have. And at the base of my pyramid, I want to have a material standard of living, to have a positive impact, to be unfireable in the position of power, not in an autocratic sense, but in the sense of if I ever want to leave a situation, I can do that, and to have health and to be around to see my grandchildren. And thinking about this in the context of, the first startup where we were making impact, but I was losing myself in that process. It's like this. So there were days where you'd just be going along, and then all of a sudden you'd hit something and everything would come crashing down. And there were so many days like that. It was so up and down. The highs were really high, the lows were really low. And coming to this moment of enlightenment, I realized what I wanted to do going forward was find that clarity, be very selective about what I want to work on, act with conviction, so focus on the journey, not the destination, and then rediscover confidence. So evolve from the past experience and do things differently going forwards. And I think, it is so much about the journey, not the destination. I was having this debate with a friend recently about what point do you consider yourself to be happy, or would you find yourself happy? And I realized that it's not about achieving X, Y, and Z that will make you happy. The happiness comes along that way, which is easy to say, but it's actually very challenging to do as well. And going forward, I decided to sort of, with this new outlook and way of doing things, my next startup, which is called Gauge 19. We're in the sort of AI space, looking at how we address the skills gap that lives in the sustainability sector. We need 26 million new jobs by 2030. I want all the days to be like this, where everything is in harmony, working with people I absolutely love to be with, and really enjoying every moment of it, to find that happiness in the work that's going on day in, day out. And I know objectively this is true. So as part of my reflecting and introspecting, I collect data. I rate each day out of 10, where 0 out of 10 is the worst day ever, and 10 out of 10 is the best day ever. And I know, sort of comparing my data from 2 years ago to now, that generally I'm much happier now than I was. I have much days which I rate as being much higher than before. So I know that this is working for me, and it's something which, as I work with other people, other sort of motivated leaders as well, this is something that's working for them as well. And so I wanted to leave you with some gifts. So the first, I've picked out 3 questions which I sort of ponder on every time I have a session with myself, and would encourage everyone to have a think about this as well. So the first one is, what do I find most fulfilling? It might be a couple of minutes in the day when I'm helping someone, or it might be spending time in an Excel spreadsheet, but really have a think about what is it you find most fulfilling, because that's where sort of your inner purpose can be found as well. The second question is a challenging one, but one which is well worth sort of having that honest conversation with yourself about, which is, how am I complicit in creating the conditions I say I do not want? So we find ourselves in situations and we don't like them, but we often have a part to play in getting ourselves in that situation. And then finally, how can I live a sustainable life enabling trickle-down sustainability? So what I mean by this is, not necessarily going out there and buying 5 recycling bins and sort of separating everything, although that would be great. This is actually sort of, how do you bed in sustainability to every part of your life and have balance, so that you have a radiative effect and other people get inspired by what you're doing, and then they try and fix their part of the world as well. So if you would like to see a copy of this, you're more than welcome to download a free copy of the framework. I've got just 2 questions I wanted to ask you as an audience in the 2 minutes we have remaining. So the first one is, what would be the one thing you take away from this presentation? So if you would be so kind enough to get your smartphone and just answer the question, that'd be amazing. So we'll give it 30 seconds and then I'll move on to the next one. This is where we get to see if the tech works and if everything works the way it's supposed to. So some people are typing away, which is fantastic. Just give it a couple more seconds. Amazing. Thank you so much for the contributions. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And then the next question I have for you all is, how would you rate this session? So I'd love to get some instant feedback in the moment of how this looks for you all. So again, just give this 30 seconds before moving on. And then just to finish off, the poll will remain open. So if you fancy answering it in your own time, that's more than welcome to. I would love to spread the power of introspection. So if you are running an event and would like me to come along, I would love to talk about this. And please feel free to follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'm always open to connections.